looking at her mother for a moment, and her mother just returning a nod to reassure her that whatever this man on the phone was saying was true. All of her doubts of whether he was actually at the door or not disappeared. With no more questions, Rose simply began to walk towards the front door, leaving her room, and as she did, looking at the front door, directly down the hallway. And again there was the knock and the ringing of the doorbell, which she could hear both over the phone and at the door itself. Rose took off, running towards the door, removing the few deadbolts and opening it without any hesitation. However, she was surprised to find on the other side a fairly attractive petite blonde woman who, without even a moment's pause or notice, rushed through the door, clinging Rose into her arms and beginning to hug her tightly. "Oh my God, you are so adorable! You're even prettier than I thought you'd be," the woman said, as suddenly she tucked her hands underneath Rose's arms and lifted her off the ground, holding her aloft in air and just staring at her with this big smile. "Just look at how big you are," she announced. "I haven't held you since you were a baby." This woman barely looked like she was out of her teens. There's no way she was young enough to hold Rose when she was a child. And not only that, Rose was not a child anymore. She was nearing 17 years old, and standing at about 5'6" and 130 pounds. Rose might have been petite, but she was not weightless. And this blonde woman was fairly petite herself, and didn't look like she'd possessed the kind of strength capable of lifting Rose up like she was just a child. And yet there she was. Could you put me down?" Rose said nervously. "Oh, I'm sorry," the woman replied as she slowly lowered Rose to her feet. "I'm sorry, I just get excited sometimes. It's been so long since I've seen you. I know you don't remember me, but when you were a baby, you were just the cutest little thing. And now just look at you." I think there have been some crossed lines," Rose announced, still extremely confused. It was at that point when a man came around the corner of the door and entered the home. A fairly good-looking man, with very dark brown hair, cut very short. It wasn't particularly styled, but it looked good regardless. He looked to be somewhere in his mid-20s. He couldn't possibly have been older than 30. His look was a little rough, having somewhat of a 5 o'clock shadow. That surprisingly looked good on him nonetheless. After Rose began to take stock, she noticed that both the man and the woman were dressed in leather attire. The woman a mixture of blue and black leathers, and the man having a heavy leather jacket with a dull brown texture to it, looking fairly older and weathered, even a bit tattered in places, while the rest of his clothes seemed fairly average. A pair of blue jeans and a somewhat loose-fitting white shirt. The man seemed to be of a fairly athletic build, as well did the woman. Well, if you don't look at that, I'd say this little seed sprouted up pretty well. You look healthy enough. You're a bit pushier than I would have imagined you'd be, knowing your mother. But hey, everybody grows into their own person, don't they?" he said as he hung up a phone that he was carrying in his hand, tucking it away into his pocket. And suddenly Rose realized that that was most likely who she was talking to. "Okay, so you're the King of Atlantis." Yeah, that's me. "I'm sorry, but you don't really have a very kingly way about you. I mean, you got the looks for it," Rose said, cocking her head and raising her eyebrow a bit. "But you don't have the look of it. Do you follow me?" Oh, what? You were expecting what? A crown? Scepter? Maybe a freaking trident? Sorry to dash your hopes, but there's no magical underwater kingdom that I'm ruling over. And besides, I'm the king. I dress how I want. And go where I want, when I want. Trust me, I'm a very busy man. It may not look like it, but I'm even busy right now. In fact, you could not fathom the amount of busy I am. It would make your head spin just to think about it. But nonetheless, I made the time to show up here. I was hoping that you or your mom had come around and might let me do a little bit of scanning to check over your well-being and whatnot. I can also take you to the cabin where you guys are going to be staying until you bloom, that is. That's what your mother likes to call it, I guess. And hell, it's their thing. I'll let them call it what they want. This was the guy that her mom was talking about, she thought to herself. I mean, she talked about it like everyone on the home world that she came from tried to get rid of this guy, make him leave. But he was just too powerful to get rid of. So they eventually just stopped trying. Is this guy really that tough? Fighting off an army of aliens. Sounds like a heavy task, Rose thought to herself. As I said before, Rose heard, coming down the hallway, the voice of her mother calling out. I am actually against it. We don't need your advanced technologies. What Rose is experiencing is a very natural process. Nature and technology don't mix. You may be all about gadgets, but I feel that nature will simply take its course. But I suppose Rose is old enough to have her own opinion about things. So, this time, I'll leave the decision to her, whether she wants your intervention or not. Ah, Mary, ever the charmer, the man exclaimed. You know, you always sound so elegant, even when you're turning someone down. It's a mixture of maddeningly annoying and somewhat endearing. It's a quality you don't see often. And trust me, I've been around the block. I've met a lot of people. It's a rare mix. Okay, before anything else, who are you? Rose said, looking to the blonde woman. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. You couldn't have remembered me from the last time. You were just a baby after all. Well, I suppose you could say that I'm the princess? Princess, right? She said, looking over with a curious expression to the man that she arrived with. Hey, I'm not going to make the call. You want to claim princess, you claim it. I guess, technically in a way of speaking, I suppose you could say you're my daughter, but I'll really leave it up to you, whether you want to be called princess or not. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter, the woman replied. Regardless of any of that, this old knucklehead is, well, kind of sort of my dad. It's very nice to meet you. Again, my name's Titan, she said as she extended her hand forward. Rose cautiously reached her hand out and shook. Rose, nice to meet you. But doesn't Titan sound a little bit strange? I mean, did your dad really name you that? Yeah, some people think it's strange, the woman replied. But that's my name, and I like it. I mean, I could have changed it a long time ago, but for whatever reason, I just don't feel comfortable being called other things. So just call me Titan. So the real question is, are you gonna let us use some gadgets? I mean, we brought some really cool ones, the woman said, looking to Rose with a smile again. What do you mean gadgets? Rose replied. No, well, it's pretty basic. Your mom told us that you were going through the bloom, and because of the differences between you and your mother, we thought you might want a little insight that your mother might perhaps give to letting technology in just a little bit. Let us give you a scan, maybe be able to tell you what you have to look forward to. Technology can be useful like that. So you can really tell me what's going to happen to me? Rose said. I mean, what my powers and stuff are going to be. Yeah, of course we can. We do have the most advanced technology on the planet and off it. Okay, Rose replied. Okay, I give you permission, I guess, to do your tests. As long as it's nothing painful. You try to strap me to a table and it's on. Because I am totally a biter. And my teeth are strong. The blonde woman laughed a bit to herself. Well, I'm glad to hear it, she said. But you don't have to worry about anything like that. Once again, once technology reaches a certain level of advancement, it just sort of makes everything easy. So you don't have to worry about any crazy operating tables. In fact, you don't really have to do anything. Just stand there and we'll do the rest.